Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Glory Glory podcast. I'm your host, as always, Kel Quinn, and it's been another chastising afternoon for Manchester United in Brighton. Another humiliation, a 4-0 defeat to add to the many humiliations this season. Obviously, it's expected that we're going to lose heavily to world-class teams like City and Liverpool, but to be embarrassed by the likes of Watford and Leicester and Brighton, just unacceptable. And like it says in the tagline, it's borderline match fixing now because these players are just totally given up. They've down tools. Many of them are not good enough. Many of them have just down tools, and some of them are both. And it was 45 minutes of mediocrity in the first half, and then once they conceded the second goal, they just totally capitulated and gave up again, and just gave away the 3 points to the other side. So, what was your thoughts on it, Nigel? Who joins me today?
I thought it was totally unacceptable. When you consider that Brighton had only scored 12 goals at home the entire season, and this was their final game at home, that they scored four against us, it's just mind-boggling stuff how poor it was. And let's take a moment to think about the fans who spent their time and good money coming a great distance from Manchester and beyond down to Brighton. I saw today in news coverage where, well before the end of the game, 20 minutes, 25 minutes into the second half, they were on coaches and trains on their way home, totally given up in their club. Many who have supported the team for up to 50 years, loyal in all weathers, to see a performance like that from people so well paid who don't care whether they wear the shirt or not. It's just inexcusable.
Yeah, I mean, we made Mark Cucurella, the left back from Brighton, made him look like Roberto Carlos. And he was so surprised at scoring against Man United. He was crying and everything during the celebrations. I mean, again, it's just embarrassing. The back four is just like we've said off air. It's one of the worst back fours we've ever come across at Manchester United. The midfield is just totally non-existent. And the forwards are just feeding off scraps. I mean, Ronaldo just didn't have many chances yesterday at all. Um, we've talked about it many times. Is he gonna stay or is he gonna go? Because you wouldn't blame him if he went because he's just playing with absolute crap week in week out, isn't he?
Yeah, I felt sorry for him to be honest. He was totally bewildered. You saw the cameras focused on his as goals two, three, and four went in. He just couldn't believe that he was lining up with such an inferior shower of people who just don't care and get their money so easily. And he is a man full of pride and dedication to the club, which he came back to when he could have gone to many other clubs. And for those guys to play like that with no effort, no guile, no strategy, no purpose. It was just inexcusable, but embarrassing to be frank.
Yeah, I noticed a comment from Rude Hullett, who I think is working as a pundit for a foreign TV station, and he said, "Let's look at the way Lindelof tried to block that shot. This is for the first goal. I have honestly never seen this before. Look at him. He spreads his legs wide open. What is he trying to do? He's like, I'm making things easy for you. Go for it. It's terrible. It's terrible. Wasn't it? I've never seen defend like that. Both hands behind his back and legs wide open on the ball. The daisy cutter just going right through his legs into the bottom corner. It's just absolutely unforgivable, that.
Well, I mean, you and I have been watching him do this for 2 years in 250 appearances. He's been doing that all the time. He turns out away from the ball because he doesn't want to concede a penalty. Opens his leg wide as Rude Hillett says. I mean, it's just, and then occasionally, like Maguire, who does the same thing, he sticks a lazy leg out and it deflects away from the head and a corner and we're one down or two down, whatever the case may be. What do these coaches do all week? Do they not see these things? They're supposed to be trained coaches getting big salaries. I mean, you saw Manchester City this afternoon scoring goals from set pieces and corners. Even the winning goal when we were watching Jimmy Garner play for Nottingham Forest the other night, I saw it later in the week, where They scored Bournemouth from a well-drilled free kick to a guy who was free, Kiefer Moore, and he buried it. Where is any of that sort of proactive and entitlement to trying things different to score goals? It just doesn't happen at our club. The club is sinking fast into mediocrity.
Yeah, I mean, Diogo Dalot, Lindelof, Telles, McTominay, Matic, Mata, Fred, all these players just symbolize just how mediocre we are now, how average we are. I mean, I heard a discussion about McTominay. What is he? Is he a defensive midfielder or is he a box-to-box midfielder? For me, he's just a nothing player. He's neither of those things. He doesn't offer anything at all. Like all he does is kick people. Really. Um, Alex Telles is easily the worst left back that I've seen in my lifetime, and there's been a few bad ones. Um, I mean, Alexander Butner springs to mind. But we've had some great ones, of course, like Dennis Irwin and obviously Ever in his prime. But he is absolutely terrible. And Diogo Dalot is only marginally better. He's an awful defender, Dalot, and he couldn't cross his fingers. How many times have we seen him cross a ball into Ronaldo and it just goes over everybody's head and out for a throw in at the other side of the pitch? Like I've said before, all four of our fullbacks aren't good enough. Shaw is probably the best of a bad bunch. I just don't understand why he persists with Telles. I can understand him not bringing in Wan-Bissaka because he's probably even worse than Dalot. But I don't see why he can't give Alvaro Fernandez a chance at left back. Can you?
No, I couldn't believe that he kept the same team. I mean, we were all uplifted for a few hours because we actually won a game and beat a very poor Brentford team the other night. But to stick with the same 11 when there's two games that don't count for much left, when we're all wanting to see what the next bunch of youth is going to bring into the club, and not to give that fella a chance at left back, I just can't understand it. Is he just trying to protect his own reputation? It's acknowledged now that his period in temporary interim management has been no better than what we saw under Solskjaer. The only thing different is that he took a liking to Elanga in training and has played him steadily and hasn't dropped him and has tried to build up the young fella's confidence. But the tactics, if there's no tactics there at all. The players don't want to play for him. It's obvious to me. Skolji allegedly was told by Lingard that it was a toxic dressing room. You can see it in the pitch, Kyle. They're not. I don't think they even like each other. Some of these players. It's just, but they should be doing their best for the fans, and that's the thing that's worse. The people who work all week and live for Saturday to be embarrassed by that shambles yesterday, and when they're being told you're not fit to wear the shirt, they're being told it for a reason because they're not fit.
Yeah, I mean, Rangnick inherited, Solskjaer's squad, an extremely unmanageable squad, but some of his decisions have been absolutely baffling. I mean, we've nothing to play for now, and he still won't give the youngsters a chance. We want to see Garnacho in the team and Alvaro Fernandez in the team at the very least. He's banished Hannibal to the under-23s again after his combative display against Liverpool, which he didn't like. And he picked the same 11 that beat Brentford 3-0. But we knew this was going to be a totally different ball game away to Brighton, who are in good form. So I don't think Matic and Mata can play 2 games in a row, and they both looked a bit off the pace on yesterday afternoon. I mean, Bruno Fernandes is just. I mean, I don't think he's gone off the boil as much as Rashford has, but I mean, his decline is really, really worrying, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, and I don't think you'll see him. It all depends on the new manager, whether he comes back or whether he gets his agent to try to get a club. Arsenal's been mentioned. I, for one, wouldn't be a bit sad. He's had his 300 games at Old Trafford. I can't see him getting any better and the last 2 years have been pretty disastrous. So we need some funds to help buy 5-6 players. So if Rashford can be sold, there'd be no sympathy from me.
And what about Bruno Fernandes? Do you see him returning to form under a new manager?
Well, I think he's got pride. He's a Portuguese international. I don't. We all know he's bundles of talent, but somebody needs to talk to him about his self discipline. His reaction to refereeing decisions is fairly taking him out of the possible captains. In my view, you just can't behave like that in a professional league. But he has oozes of talent, and if the manager can get in top of that, I'm sure he'll come back again. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's gone off the boil after being so good for his first 18 months at Old Trafford. And another player who's caught the United disease is Raphael Varane. I mean, he looked like a pub defender yesterday. What is it where world class players come to United and they just don't do it? Okay, I wouldn't write him off at the moment, but he has to be playing more games. He has to be performing a lot better because yesterday he wasn't any better than the rest of the back four, was he?
No, he just fell foul of the what we would call the Manchester United defensive malaise, where the whole back four across the line, they don't play with each other. They can't call offside. They can't get close enough to block crosses coming in. There's absolute panic and set pieces. It's. I mean, I've said often about how it must be for the goalkeeper, but Varane coming in after his years of glory at a top club in Spain to arrive at that shambles that we have as a back four, and you've already alluded to four fullbacks who none of them really would get anywhere near the top three in England's first team or even the bench. In my view, it's just we're just have to have a root and branch clear out.
Yeah, I mean, ideally we'd love 10 in and 10 out, but we know that's not going to be realistic. Um, Obviously there's six players, including Lee Grant, who's going to be leaving on a free, and Bailly and Jones would probably go. Wan Bissaka could go, but there's a lot of players there yesterday who'd probably be here next season as well, who featured in that game. Um, I also thought another criticism I have of Ranić is the substitutions are completely ineffective. Again, he made a double change. It wasn't Rashford and Lingard this time. It was Fred and Cavani. And if anything, we got worse when those two players came on. I mean, it was 1-0 at half time. Those two players come on at half time, and it was 4-0 at the end of the game. So I think Cavani had a goal ruled out for offside, but other than that, I don't think he really offered that much. Fred, we know his limitations. We've talked about it many times. So, and then he brought on Maguire for Damon's limitation rather than bringing on the youngster to give us something to be excited about, give the away fans something to cheer. But I've never seen a Man United fan or Man United manager bring on an extra defender at 4-0 down for Damon's limitation. It should not be happening at a club of this size.
No, it's the fear factor. He just he's getting so many hidings in the press, like they all do. It's a big club, and they have to be man enough to make brave decisions. That was a negative decision, baffling for everyone. And the other thing, Kyle, is what about this two goalkeepers on the bench? What Manchester United? That's not the United way. What is that all about? Even at home, we can have two goalkeepers on the bench rather than have somebody coming through from the under-23s or even the under-18s to get them the feeling and the atmosphere of Old Trafford and the Theatre of Dreams. What is the club coming to? It's totally lost its way.
I thought that was a Solskjaer thing, having two keepers on the bench, but Ranić has just continued that trend, and there's nobody who can explain it. No United fan understands it. It's just totally baffling. I've been following a lot of the kind of United YouTube channels today to get the reactions, and there's obviously a lot of anger, a lot of ranting. But one thing I saw on the Webby and O'Neill channel was one of them. I think it was O'Neill who said Ronaldo came back to United to win trophies. This team couldn't win a game of tiddlywinks, is how he put it, and I thought it was very amusing.
True.
So, player ratings time. I'll hand that over to you then. We'll start off with the goalkeeper. Obviously, you couldn't give him a high score because you can see the four, but none of them were his fault. So we'll start off with De Gea. What would you give him?
I'd give him a 5.
Okay, Diogo Dallo.
1.
Lindelof.
1.
Varane.
3.
Our old friend Alex Telles.
0. Absolutely useless from start to finish.
Scott McTominay,
3.
Matic,
3.
Juan Mata,
3.
Bruno Fernandes,
2.
Anthony Alanga,
4 maybe. Well, he was hooked at half time.
Cristiano Ronaldo.
6.
And what about the half-time substitutions of Fred and Cavani?
Well, Fred 4. Cavani 5. He had a good header, was well saved by the Brighton keeper. And he did put himself about a lot more than some of them I watched in the first half. So I'll give him a 5, yeah.
Yeah, it's a worrying trend that the likes of Matic, Mata, and Cavani give more effort on the pitch than players who are probably going to be here next season. It's a sorry indictment on our squad at the moment. So Ralf Rangnick, what does he get for yesterday's performance?
2.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The wrong team and the late substitutes, as you mentioned, and bringing the fear factor, bringing Maguire on to stop it getting any worse than 4-0. It's just shameful, absolutely horrible.
Well, hopefully in the final game of the season, which is an excruciating 2 weeks away, we just want to get the season over and done with, done and dusted. But we're going to have to wait another fortnight now for that to happen. We want to see at least Garnacho and Alvaro Fernandez start that game. But I have no belief in this manager that he's going to give youngsters a chance. I wouldn't be surprised if he picked the same team against Crystal Palace.
Well, that would be soul destroying, Kyle, if it comes to that. Over the years, Ferguson always used that game, or maybe the last 2 games, the blood players. Even Tommy Duck's day, I remember him bringing Peter Coyne in, very young player against Leicester in the final game of the season. There's loads of players have been tried. Some of them haven't made it. I remember that guy, James Wilson, scored 2 goals in the last game of the season some years ago before he got a serious injury and didn't fulfill his ability at the club. But you have to use that game. And as you already said, these guys are spent. They're already at the beach. They don't want to know. They're waiting for the new manager to try to resurrect their careers at Old Trafford. But the fans have seen them too long now, and they want rid. As you say, we just can't get rid of them all at one time. But let's, over the next 3 years, get rid of the garbage that we're currently watching every week.
Well, in terms of the 14 players who featured yesterday, I'm just going to do a kind of a breakdown of who I want to stay and go and see how many actually make it into my list of players I want to keep. So De Gea, I would keep. No, get rid of Dalot. I'd get rid of Lindelof. I'd keep Varane. Get rid of Telles. Probably get rid of McTominay. Get rid of Matic, Mata. Keep Fernandez. Keep Ronaldo and keep Alanga. Probably get rid of Fred and get rid of Cavani and get rid of Maguire. So that brings us to a grand total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Only 5 out of the 14 yesterday who featured that I would keep at the club. Do you agree with me?
Yeah, absolutely everyone. Yeah, absolutely. Some of them have already decided that the way they're telling the media is they're leaving the club, but we wanted them to go anyway, and they've obviously upset people behind the scenes. And the young players that we want to come through are not been given that opportunity. So let's let these guys go. Get whatever money you can. The ones that aren't going on a free. I mean, the goalkeeping position's an interesting one. I wouldn't be surprised if Newcastle came in for Henderson and offered 20 million. I think they should take that money and use it to help get some people in,
Yeah, because I imagine the allocation of the budget will allow for 3 signings, and anything after that will have to come from players' shields. And we're hoping Newcastle will help us out by buying the likes of Henderson, maybe even Martial as well. That would be fantastic, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I'd be amazed if any paid a shilling for Martial. He's gone on loan and flopped there, so I don't see anybody with any ambition at all would get a guy like that who's just so full of his own importance, plays when he wants to play. Why would you pay any money for a guy like that? You want people to play and try.
Yeah, I know. It's just he just doesn't seem to have any shame whatsoever. So our Ten Hag is closing in on the Dutch title now. Both, I think Ajax drew away to AZ Alkmaar 2-each, and PSV did the same thing, drew 2-each away to Feyenoord.
That's the
So
problem. Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
So there's still a 4 point gap there with 2 games remaining. So it means if Ajax beat Heerenveen at home on Wednesday night, they will be champions, and that's great news for us because we want Ten Hag to start focusing on Man United as quickly as possible, don't we?
Oh, without a doubt. Just one point, Kyle. One player we haven't mentioned who's theoretically still on the books, but because he mysteriously got himself injured against Liverpool, can you imagine what the score would have been yesterday if he'd been playing? It would have been 7-0.
Yeah, I mean, we criticise McTominay for his lack of ability, but at least he's prepared to put himself about. I mean, Paul Pogba doesn't even do that, which is a minimum requirement of any midfielder.
Correct, yeah, absolutely. And it's soul destroying for the younger players, seeing players as good as that, just not trying and getting their agent, the late Raiolas, to say things like that about the club and how ambitious he is to go somewhere else. It's just it's soul destroying that we have had to put up with that attitude. It's just not good enough.
So yeah, there's two potential kind of transfer strategies. Either we try and buy the more expensive players, and obviously that means we'll bring in less players, or we could go down the route of buying younger players for smaller fees. I imagine they'll go down the route of buying, as the top quality players that will cost more, and well, to the quality that we can actually get. Obviously, we're not going to be shopping in the top bracket with not being in the Champions League. But Henry Winter, the prominent journalist over in England, there, I seen him on a United fan channel, and he's absolutely convinced that United should get in Declan Rice and make him captain next season. What do you think about that?
Oh, that would be wonderful if it didn't use up all the entire budget that we have available, because West Ham are looking silly money. I've no doubt that Rice would slot in and be a great captain, and I've no doubt that he actually is interested, which is a good thing for a start in going to Old Trafford. He's indicated that in interviews, but can we afford to use the entire budget in one player? I don't think so, And I think the Ten Hag will have his own ideas. I'm hoping that with him, with his history of playing in the Champions League, of managing in the Champions League, that he have seen players in different countries that can be picked up at reasonable prices. I certainly, if I was him, I wouldn't be relying on the current United scouting system, because they bought so many bad players at ludicrously high prices. He's going to have a big input into what happens when the checkbook comes out, because and I know that all these clubs try to get millions more because it's United in the market. The Trippier thing was a clear indication of that, where they wanted 30 million, and all of a sudden he goes to Newcastle and he's down to 12 million, was it? I mean, it's just becoming a joke, guy.
Yeah, it is. I think West Ham are crazy if they think United are going to pay 150 million. I think they're just quoting that just to put clubs off. But I mean, I couldn't see United paying any more than maybe 80 million. Maybe I don't think they'd even want to go that high, but I couldn't see them. I'd say that would be the ceiling. Um, but as you say, we don't want to splash our entire budget on one player. Um, whether or not we can afford to bring in Declan Rice will depend on how many players we get out the door, and
That's true.
how many funds we can recuperate from selling players like Bailly and Jones and Wan-Bissaka and Telles and Rashford, maybe, and even Maguire. If we can get a good chunk of those players off the books, then maybe we could splash big money on Declan Rice. But obviously, we want to bring in the fullback area has to be addressed as well. It's absolutely a priority this summer, and we need to bring in a right back. We could possibly make do with Shaw for 12 months in this situation of having to buy a player in nearly every position. But the right back is an absolute urgency. Obviously, need to bring in a striker, and obviously a couple of midfielders probably, and hopefully Garner will become part of the first team picture.
Yeah,
Um,
he has
so
two fullbacks coming back, Ethan Laird and Brandon Williams. Now let's leave it to the integrity and judgment of the new manager. Let them be looked at, and if they're not good enough, they're not good enough, and I'll fall in with his judgment. But certainly they're coming back, and the ones that are there don't deserve any more uh, attempts in the team. Let's have a look at these guys on the pre-season tour and see how they get on.
Yeah, they're going out to Thailand and Australia in July, and we playing the likes of Aston Villa and Liverpool. So we'll be tuning in to all those games on MUTV to get a look at these players, and we'd love to see some of the young players make it into the match day squad in August, or maybe even the lineup. And there's a great chance of it. With Dutch managers love to blood young players, so the the young players coming back from loan spells, and the other ones who were looking to play against Crystal Palace like Garnacho, they could they couldn't it couldn't be a better time for them to get a chance with a Dutch manager coming in. So that'll be interesting. Obviously, he's going to need a lot of senior players to come in as well, and then because obviously the scenario will be better. We couldn't rely on a team of youngsters. Too much pressure on them, so we'll need to sign, like experienced players to come and play with them. And 90% of this current squad just need to be absolutely axed, because if they're just going to uh, turn on their kind of effort on and off like a tap, then they just can't be trusted. There's no rehabilitating these players. Even the ones that still have talent but are just not producing it, they have to go as well, because they just can't be trusted, can they?
No, definitely not. But people look at the madness giving people contracts when they certainly weren't making their presence felt at the club. Like Bailly, we talked about it recently, under 120 appearances in 6 years, and then last year giving them a 3-year contract. It's just crazy. And the new managers, we're going to have to do something about the salary. We're going to have a cap somewhere along the line. We just can't have this that you'll go to Old Trafford at the end of your career, you're leaving a club in Europe and we'll just go there for the money. That sort of attitude has to be driven out of the player pool, because it's becoming a joke. They're laughing at us. We're paying well over the odds. When we talk about Harry Maguire, for example, we've talked before about whether he'd be captain next season. I can remember at the time when we were in the frame for him in Manchester City, we're sniffing at Harry Maguire too. He played very well against City in a cup tie, but they went to their 50 million limit for that guy, and we paid 80 million. They wouldn't go a penny beyond it. That's what they rated him at. And yet United with the funds went in and paid ridiculous money, and we've suffered for it ever since, because he can't cope with the pressure of playing at Old Trafford, and secondly being captain. What a mistake that was from Holly, making him captain so early when he wasn't proven as a long-term player in the team.
Yeah, I just don't think he can hack it. I would seriously consider any offers that are made this summer for him, because I just don't think he has what it takes to be an head player. If he goes back to like a mid-table team, I know we are a mid-table team, but it's not where we want to be. A team like Aston Villa, Everton, Leicester, if he goes that sort of team, the pressure wouldn't be on him as much, and obviously he's not expected to produce 7 out of 10 performances every week at those clubs. So I think he would probably flourish at a team like that. But at Manchester United, like so many players in the past, he's just not been able to cope with the pressure.
No, his wages would be a problem. I can see us having to pay off his wages until his contract's up, because he's on a ridiculously high amount of money. It's just scandalous, the money that they're getting.
Yeah, and it could Wan-Bissaka as well. If how humiliating would it be for the club if he went back to Crystal Palace on loan after we paid them £50 million for him?
I know, it really is. We're becoming a laughing stock with some of these players. It really is. And the continual talking to press about every player in Europe's available that United are going to buy him. I don't want to hear any of that. I want the new manager to come in, have a quick look and assess. And he's in the game long enough to know what he needs and what he wants. And there's a limit on his budget, but let's see some sound signings along with young players. He has a reputation that he likes the young players, bringing them through and developing them. That's what we need.
Yeah, I think he needs to be given 4 or 5 transfer windows to phase out these players and build his own squad, and he has to be given time. I don't care if we don't finish in the Champions League spots next season. Obviously the owners might, but all we want to see next season is a team of players giving their all on the pitch, and we just want to be entertained. We know that, like I've said before, there's going to be bumps in the road. We're going. I can imagine next season we're going to have some brilliant performances where we're winning games 3-2 and 4-0, and then there's going to be games where we lose 3-2 or get beat 3-1, and that's okay because it's a work in progress. We just want a team that are that we can that we actually like, a team that are giving absolutely everything on the pitch, and I want to see entertaining football. And that's all my expectations are for next season. And once we have that, then we can begin to build in the right direction.
Well, that's true. The current focus is one of absolute embarrassment if you look at the goal difference. I mean, our goal difference is one, and you have Liverpool and City in the 60s, and Chelsea at 39, and even Arsenal at 20. But we can't keep goals out, so we don't get enough service, as you've already alluded to up front. People like Ronaldo, if he'd been in a decent squad this year in another team, he could have scored 35 goals because he's a great, great finisher. But at our team, you saw him yesterday. Just they couldn't get the ball to him. They were so bad at the back that there was absolutely nothing happening up front.
Yeah, it's just it's a joke because um, we were basically a two-man team, the goalkeeper and Ronaldo, and it's been that way for months now. It seems, and it's a two-horse race for the Sir Matt Busby Player of the Year award. I think they'd probably give it to Ronaldo just to avoid giving it to De Gea for like the fifth time or something, because it's another embarrassment for the club that a goalkeeper keeps winning Player of the Year. So imagine they'll take the opportunity this year not to give it to him and give it to Ronaldo just to see a face, really, won't they?
Yeah, I think CR7 will probably win that trophy. Yeah, not the most prestigious thing he's ever won, by the way.
No, definitely not. But it remains to be seen. Is he going to stay or not? He made his mind up very late when it came to leaving Juventus last summer. It was very late August that happened. He possibly might sit tight and see who Ten Hag brings in and who leaves, and then make his decision. But obviously, it's not going to involve Champions League football. If he got an offer from someone like Real Madrid, he might leave. But I'm not convinced that he's going to get that kind of offer from one of those big clubs.
Yeah, no, you're not. You're certainly more hopeful than I am that he'll be there in August. I don't think he will be. I think the setback in his personal life recently hasn't helped either. There could be pressure from his partner to maybe to go somewhere near home for her. Who knows what will develop there? But anyway, it's the new manager's call, and the decision will be made. But let it be made as early as possible.
Well, no
Cavani
matter
has
what
made the point. Yeah. And that they brought him Ronaldo in so late that Cavani had been promised a certain role by Ollie, which didn't happen, and we've seen that Cavani's just gone downhill. Two goals this season in 18 appearances, missed about 20 games. It's just been a fiasco.
Yeah, and didn't miss any games for Uruguay. So it is just a case of it just gives off the impression that he just can't be bothered turning up because he knows he's not going to be the starting number 9. So he's been a major disappointment this season, and we'll be actually happy to see the back of him. And I never ever thought I would have said that 12 months ago, to be honest with you. So no matter what happens with Ronaldo, we're going to sign a striker, and we hope we can get like someone like Darwin Núñez from Benfica, someone of that quality, because we don't want to be bringing in you know a player who's just a squad filler. Someone like being linked with someone like Ajax's Sebastian Aller. He's not good enough to play for Man United. He didn't make it at West Ham. And there's been other kind of mediocre strikers that we've been linked with, or like Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Absolutely no way. If we're going to sign a striker, it has to be someone that's top quality. Of course, we've been linked with Christopher Nkunku, who Ranić has recommended to the board, and with his contacts at RB Leipzig, he can get that deal done. He scored 32 goals this season, and I've seen an absolutely wonderful finish against Rangers in the Europa League semi-final from him. He's versatile. He can play at number 10 on anywhere across the front, but he seems at the moment now for RB Leipzig, he seems to be playing as the number 9. So him or Núñez would be my pick as the the number 9 signing.
Well, they sound interesting. What age brackets are they in now, Kyle? Just for the listeners and the viewers. Are
Well,
they in their
Darwin Núñez is 22 and Christopher Nkunku is 24.
Well, that's more like it. Yeah, that's the type of player we're looking for. Yeah, we want to develop and expand their career by getting to England and playing in the best league in Europe. In my view, yeah, yeah. The other thing to mention is I was glad to see that Ahmed came on just after half time and scored a goal. The Rangers today scored the second goal. Apparently, chipped the ball over the keeper. So he's another one that the new manager's got to have a look at. We paid big money for him, and let's see whether he can make it or not.
Well, yeah, that's good from his point of view because it overall the loan spell hasn't really worked out for him. Next season potentially he might not go anywhere on loan. He might stay because, I mean, my squad is going to get, squad numbers is going to decrease with a lot of these players leaving on a free, and then we're going to be selling people to raise cash. So our squad is probably going to be a lot smaller next season, and that potentially means someone like Ahmad will be part of the first team picture. Would you be happy enough for that?
Yeah, oh, definitely I would. Palestri doesn't seem to have made any impact so far. I don't think he's any goals or any assists at all while on his period out on loan.
Nah, I think he's just going to be written off, isn't he?
Yeah, it looks like it. It looks like it. But all the loan players need to come back because we're going to be letting people are choosing to leave, and we want others to leave. So, as you say, the squad has to be identified as quickly as possible, and the manager given time to assess who he needs and who he wants, which is more to the point.
Yeah, if Ahmad doesn't become part of the United first team in the next 2 seasons, he's just going to be another Giuseppe Rossi, isn't he? Someone who was full of promise but just never made it.
That's the danger, and I don't have any fear the people who are scouting these players and paying such big sums for them. It's a bit of a gamble, and we seem to lose out in these gambles.
Yeah, well, Ed Woodward is gone, Matt Judge is gone, 2 senior scouts have gone. I would say just keep them coming. I don't think there's been enough resignations or sackings there, in my opinion.
No, definitely not. A lot of them have to be weeded out, and the offside at the back needs to be carefully monitored, and the corners and set pieces there has to be a lot of work put in there. We need to get the right people in behind the scenes to get that organised properly, and let's see what they're working on Saturdays. They've been all week at it. There doesn't seem to be any purpose or strategy at all. There's just no new initiatives. It's just the same old Shaw Tellis taking the corners from both sides of the pitch. I mean, it's unbelievable it's lasted so long with such poor results.
Are you not impressed with the set piece coach that we got from the Chelsea under-23s, who's overseen a mighty 3 goals from set pieces this season and took 6 months to get her first?
No, not impressed one little bit.
I think his time has been an absolute failure at the club, and he'll be lucky to keep his job. Obviously, I think I haven't seen much of Mike Phelan recently. Is he just been paid off now? Has he?
Yeah, he goes at the end of June with lots of dollars in the bank, and he'll retire gracefully with all his millions wherever he's going. Spain, probably buy a villa in Spain with all his money.
Well, that hard-earned cash that he earned over the last 4 years at Old Trafford. So one final wee positive thing is that we are in the FA Youth Cup final. It's given us something to shout about. Apparently, 60,000 tickets have been sold for that game. I think it's on Wednesday night. So it gives us something to be hopeful about. And hopefully, a lot of the young players can perform on the night and win that trophy again for the first time in 11 years, I think. And hopefully a few of them will make it into the first team. I suspect Garnacho is going to play in this game.
Yes, he's down to play in this game. I'm really, really excited about that. I followed the early rounds on MUTV, and certainly they play the United way and they try to score as many goals as possible. And they've got a sound goalkeeper. They seem to be better, and they have young Fernandez at the back too, don't they? So it really is something that could lift the mood of gloom that's around Old Trafford at the moment, because everybody's just fed up with the first team. Let's hope these young fellas can give us a decent night on Wednesday.
Yeah, absolutely. See, regarding the Palace game, I know this is not going to happen because we know what Ralph Rangnick is like. We know what his team selections tend to be, but I would absolutely play as many youngsters as possible in that game. I would probably just play De Gea and Ronaldo, and then just a team of youngsters. I'd even play Charlie Savage and Zidane Iqbal and the whole lot of them, because I'm just bored of looking at a team of players who have just totally checked out and don't care about the fans at all, and you're just not putting in the effort anymore. I'm just so sick and tired of even looking at them now, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah, I agree. I would play as many as 6 players, underage players in that game, which is a meaningless fixture. And could they do any worse than lose 4-0 than the first team, alleged first team, did on Saturday past? And it's a big thrill for those people to get that chance if they've been there at the club since they were 7 or 8, worked their way up. And some of them have been signed at very young age from, say, Madrid or Barcelona. They've been told they'll be given a chance, and this is an opportunity that any manager, just not the current interim manager, should be taking the opportunity to blood them.
Yeah, he should, because he's been very honest and critical of the first team in his press conferences. I know I'd be happy to keep him on next season just to do the press conferences, but on match day, I'm afraid he's been a total failure, to be honest, and hasn't got a response from this team at all. I know they're very unmanageable, but his tactics and his substitutions have been baffling, and he really hasn't got a tune out of them one bit. I think his role in football in the last decade has been as a director of football. He's only managed 2 of the last 10 seasons in the dugout, and his role at Leipzig the last 10 years has been mostly in the boardroom. So, what were Man United doing? Sacking a manager and then replacing him with Lokomotiv Moscow's director of football and putting him in the dugout. What was that all about?
That's crazy, absolutely crazy. He looks as if he hasn't been at the top of the game for 10 years. I mean, he really is struggling. He's not. He's better than Ollie in the press conferences, that he's open and honest about the thing. But then when you look at how he treated young Hannibal, I'm absolutely baffled by that. In a match where there was no competition by our players to win the ball, this guy comes on and puts himself about and tries to do something to show there is some effort in the team. And we haven't seen him since, Kyle. Will we see him in the final game? I don't think it's fair that a guy like that should be banished simply because he put a few tackles in. Do you?
No, that was the only silver lining that night, was him coming on and putting himself about. Someone who looked like he cared, and that was something that the fans could get behind. There was nothing else positive that night. I did joke that he could have got a second yellow because he's putting himself about that much, but I mean, surely you want that enthusiasm from a young player.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I mean, I've watched him play at the junior level, and he gets kicked black and blue. Let me tell you. And but gets up and plays on. He's not afraid to beat players, and he's a flair player. And that's the type of players we need, that they can be physical as well. Some of the young players come through, never put on any bulk or any weight, and just don't make it in the first team. But he has the potential. He's a big lad. He shouldn't be discouraged after only 10, 12 minutes in the first team.
Yeah, definitely. Another decision from Ranić that has totally baffled me, to be honest. Um, so Fernandez yesterday must have made his 29th apology of the season. He was asked about the fans chanting, "You're not fit to wear the shirt," and he said, "I include myself in that. What I did today was not enough to be in the Man United shirt, and I accept that." But you know, I don't want to hear Fernandez apologizing after every humiliation this season. I just want to see him get back to the player that he was when he came in January 2020. It's words are just meaningless to supporters. We just want to see performances on the pitch, don't we?
Oh, yeah. And I mean, he's just following the lead of Maguire. Sure, we had 3 or 4 months of Maguire after every embarrassing defeat, being captain, coming out and saying, I apologise and I'm sorry. But they didn't do anything about it during the week to play better the following Saturday. The following Saturday was a similar apology. I mean, it's just tiresome the way it's not addressed behind the scenes. I mean, wouldn't you think that the players should have been in on Sunday morning, this morning, and showing the tape of the match by the club coaches and focus in on them individually and saying, look at that, what were you doing there? That's not acceptable. But no, our club just drifts on, drifts, defeat here, a point here, and just it's as you say, it's rotten from the top down. That's this. We have to hope that the new manager will be given proper control to address these problems that we talk about every week.
There's no doubt these players will probably be looking for a few days off. I'm mentally tired now. I'm physically tired. I need a few days off after that. And they'll jet out to Dubai for a few days, and then they'll come back to training on Friday. It's just an absolute joke. It's a social club, like you say.
Yeah, it definitely is. It definitely is. The management has lost control of the players. And it happened through Ollie's time. He was far too soft, and the legacy of Ollie will cost us until, as you say, we unload these players maybe over 2 or 3 windows, because you want players to play for the shirt and to try. It's when they don't try and just stroll about and lift their big salaries every month. It's just inexcusable.
Yeah, what we've got at the moment is the lunatics running the asylum, and it's just there's no way that should be the case.
Yeah, that's well.
So Ranić has said, I'm still very positive that with our Ten Hag, we have a top manager next season. And I'm also pretty sure the board has already made some changes, and there will be more changes to come in the summer. It's very interesting. Could there be more changes to the scouting department, the football department, and obviously Ten Hag will bring in his own coaches. So Ranić seems to be accepting of the fact that he's not the man to turn it around in terms of being the coach anyway. And he's obviously been hugely complimentary towards Ten Hag. He thinks he's the man, but it's all about the power. He has to be given the power to make changes, Ten Hag. And what we've been told is that he wouldn't sign the contract unless he was given absolute assurance that he would have control over who stays and who goes and who gets new contracts. If he is given that power and it is in his contract, then that does bode well for the future, doesn't it?
It does, but we can only just wait, Kyle, to see what develops, because we've been told things before by various people in the hierarchy at the club, and what they did was they made corporate decisions about players who they thought would sell shirts and bring in more revenue, rather than build up a team atmosphere and get the team going again and playing the United way, which we all want. And as you said earlier, we want to be entertained, not bored. I mean, all those fans, 25 minutes, as I said at the start, getting the buses home and the trains home, that's inexcusable. In the olden days, you wouldn't, in Fergie time, you wouldn't have left before 95, 96 minutes, because we were still playing to the end of the game. These players had given up midway through the first half, weren't even interested in the game. That's the way I read it.
Yeah, I'm really hoping that we don't bring in any more kind of Cavani's or Sanchez's or Radamel Falcao's or Schweinsteigers. I don't mind bringing in, a top quality player who's a big name, but it has to be someone who's in his 20s. We can't bring in these players in their mid 30s anymore to sell shirts. Uh, it's just not an effective transfer strategy. All that is a marketing exercise, and it doesn't do anything to help us win football games. And like you say, the board's priority has been purely commercial. The the football is just doesn't mean anything to the Glazers over in Tampa. What happens on the pitch is meaningless as long as United qualify fourth every season. They don't care United win anything, or the players are just commodities to them, and they've been given they've been given more authority than the managers, because if the players have you've seen over the last few years that players can easily get the manager sacked, and that's the culture of the club now. And as long as these players are getting us likes and tweets and retweets and on social media, and they're doing all these marketing campaigns, the owners are happy enough. So it's just that, like I've said so many times, they appoint the best in class in terms of the commercial side of the business, but when it comes to the football side of the business, anyone will do. Anyone will do. Ollie wins 14 of his first 19 matches as an interim manager, and he gets the job. They just completely go off course and just do something, completely spontaneous like that. It's just that's the way the club's been run for a long time. And Ten Hag has obviously seen that. He's seen what a mess it is, and he's saying, "I will not be able to turn this around unless I have absolute authority and control over the decision making." And the only way things are going to change if he does get that power and authority. If he doesn't, it's just going to be more of the same, and it's going to end up being another 26 years without a title.
Oh, there's no doubt about that. He has to get in as early as he can. Obviously, he'd probably take a holiday after the end of the Dutch season, but he needs to get there in advance of the pre-season tour and have a look at who's come back from other clubs who are out, the players out on loan, and let the players go that have already indicated they're leaving the club at the end of the season, and make it all about football from now on and not about corporate business. And because we see what the dividends that are being paid to the Glazers twice a year, and that's their priority, always has been their priority, and the fans don't count. But if we can get a good start under this manager, play with a bit of flair, try to get more home wins and get the crowd singing again. It's like a dead duck at Old Trafford now when you consider when you're watching the top teams playing who are challenging for trophies. Once our standards drop, you can hear the crowd. You don't hear anything. The crowd, frankly, it has to get better, and let's try to be positive and hope this new man can produce the goods.
Yeah, because United are just a cash machine now for players, coaches, owners, directors. They're all just making obscene amounts of money, and we're seeing very little in return as fans. The fans who go to Old Trafford every week and away games are kind of the mugs in all this. I'm sorry to say, and they've just been treated very badly. For the last, what you could say, you could go back to 2005 or back to 2013, but it's just been a total robbery in terms of what the fans have got in return for their money. But we are hoping that Ten Hag will turn things around, but he's going to need time. He's going to need patience. And it's terrible pressure on him, isn't it? Isn't there?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I mean, you wouldn't blame him if he wasn't able to turn it around, and if he does, he'll be an absolute hero forever and a day, won't he?
Yeah, well, the media covers both the social media now is a new development in the game. Not a great thing in my view, but the press conferences are very intense, and there's interest because United have fans all around the world, Kyle. So there's coverage nearly in every country that plays football. So that manager has to come from Holland and into that environment. It'll be very difficult for him, but he's taken up the challenge, and I wish him every good fortune.
Yeah, he's got a taste of it already because he was arriving at Ajax's training ground and signing a few autographs, and there was Sky Sports reporter there from England shoving a microphone in his face. So that's just a sign of things to come. I hope that he does do a press conference at the end of the season before he goes on holiday, because yeah, that'll be a major event by itself. Every time a new manager comes in, there's a press room full of 150 people, journalists and photographers, and the fans just want to see him speak and get a sense of what he's about and what his plans are. So I'm hoping we don't have to wait till mid-July to see a press conference.
Oh no, as early as possible, absolutely. And you see that press crowd, they're used to the successful teams under Ferguson. So they're some of them are too young to remember what we all went through between 68 and 93, the years of bleakness when Liverpool dominated in the old First Division. So they have to give the manager a chance as well. He has to adapt to a new environment, a new way the game is played, and bring his own ideas to Old Trafford and be allowed to do that. And as you've quietly said, you have to give the guy time. It's an awful pressurised job, and the supporters demand success, but the press really go hard on the manager, so he needs to be strong and up to that. So I hope he is.
Well, yeah, like I said, I want to see a committed team, a team that entertains, and in the first couple of seasons, if you could pick up a domestic cup, that would be fantastic. But I'm under no illusions. It's going to be at least 5 years before we're looking at winning the Premier League, and he has to be given that 5 years to make it happen, providing that we are seeing signs of progress, between now and then.
Yeah, I agree absolutely. Yeah. Let's hope he's given that time.
Okay, we'll wrap it up there. If everyone could subscribe to the podcast, like the video if you're watching on YouTube, and comment your thoughts down below. And also check out all our social media pages. On Twitter, where we can find us at the United_podcast_. On Instagram at Glory Podcast, and the same on Facebook. So good to chat to you, Nigel, and I'll see you again in a few weeks.
Yeah, look forward to it. Take care. Bye.